Movies engage two senses, vision and hearing. Sometimes what we hear is more significant than what we see. Director Steven Spielberg says that the eye sees better when the sound is great. Sound is things such as talking, laughing, singing, music, and aural effects of objects and settings. The sound in film operates on both physical and psychological levels. For most narrative films, sound provides cues that helps us form expectations about meaning. In some cases, sound actually shapes our analysis and interpretations. Sound calls attention to itself, but also to silence. Some types of sound in films are vocal sounds such as dialogue and narration, environmental sounds such as ambient sound, sound effects, and Foley sounds, as well as types of music and silence are used. Vocal sounds tend to dominate most films and carry most of the narrative weight. Environmental sounds usually provide information about a film's setting and action, and music often directs our emotional reactions. A major part of the film, 2001: A Space Odyssey, was the music used. Kubrick used only existing music in the film rather than an original composition. It was said that Kubrick opened the door for those modern directors whose style relies on existing music rather than an original composition. Kubrick treated recordings as found objects. He did not stand in the awe of the traditional Hollywood score or those who wrote them, or even classical and contemporary composers. Kubrick also intended 2001 to be a non-verbal film, appealing directly to the subconscious, and music was a key to that. It was suggested that Kubrick employed the help of North purely to appeal to MGM's demands that the film had a classic Hollywood film score, and Kubrick had no intention to use the music other than the temporary tracks he was working with. This would be a likely explanation, as it could be argued that the story follows structure based on the music. People also said that it shows vulgarity when a director uses music previously composed, and that 2001: A Space Odyssey is the height of vulgarity in our time. Kubrick did not abandon traditional scoring. He avoided what Australian composer Paul Charlier calls parasitism, and still afflicts film music. Music has often been used simply to supply something not there in the image, missing emotions, or to intensify the effect of something that is already there. Paul Charlier says Kubrick did not do that. He did not need to. His images were already strong enough by themselves. When Kubrick added music, it was to transform a scene. The music was not subservient except to Kubrick. He may not have had a great respect for film composer, but he did for the power of music itself. Silence. There is 46 minutes of the film without any accompaniment music. There is dialogue and there are sound effects, but both are scant, and the latter is often indistinguishable from background noise anyway. But during the long silence, there are different types of background noise. They get less comment than the soundtrack because they're less obvious. But Kubrick's types of silence are often carefully chosen as his music. Frank's oxygen supply hissing and his breathing during his spacewalk, dead echoless silence while Frank and Dave conspire against Hal, and the white noise as Hal reads their lips. The weight and tension and meaning in the silence in these scenes is as significant as any music could be. An example of silence being used in the film is shown after Hal tries to lock Dave outside of the ship. As Dave re-enters the ship without his helmet, we sense the vacuum of space because we see a jet of gas and we see Dave being tossed around like a ragdoll. And then we see him pull the lever to close the hatch and we hear nothing. Just for those few seconds, and bracketed by probably the two noisiest effects in the film, the alarms in Dave's pod and the oxygen rushing into the airlock, sound is totally absent from the film. There is no background noises, just silence.